You are sitting in a windowless archive on the 42nd floor of a mid-tier maritime law firm, cross-referencing 19th century salvage rights with modern deep-sea drilling permits. It is a Tuesday, 11:14 a.m., and your greatest professional risk is a paper cut from a dusty ledger. Then the elevator chime rings. It is not a courier or a paralegal who exits. It is a phalanx of three men in charcoal suits followed by Elias Thorne, a man whose recent private lunar expeditions have made him the most scrutinized individual on the planet. He places a single, notarized deed on your mahogany desk. It is not for a plot of land in the Maldives or a stretch of the Arctic shelf. It is a claim for the exclusive mineral rights to the lunar South Pole, specifically the Aitken Basin, which holds enough helium-3 to power the Earth for 1,000 years. Thorne tells you that as of 6 minutes ago, a coalition of 14 nations filed a joint injunction in the International Court of Justice accusing him of the greatest theft in human history. They are calling it the grand larceny of the commons. Thorne looks at you and says that every other elite firm turned him down because they fear the political fallout, but he knows your thesis on extraterritorial sovereignty in vacant jurisdictions by heart. He offers you a retainer that exceeds your firm's annual revenue. If you refuse, the moon becomes a battlefield of nationalized interests. If you accept, you are the most hated lawyer in the solar system. You take the pen, sign the agreement, and within the hour, you are standing in a high-security briefing room staring at a holographic map of the lunar surface that you must now defend as private property. The transition from maritime clerk to the vanguard of interplanetary litigation is instantaneous and violent. You are no longer arguing about sunken Spanish galleons. You are arguing about the fundamental definition of ownership in a vacuum. Your first strategic move is to bypass the Outer Space Treaty of 1967 by utilizing a loophole involving the utilization of in situ resources clause. You spend 36 hours straight constructing a defense that posits the moon not as a territory, which the treaty forbids owning, but as a dynamic industrial asset subject to the laws of discovery and improvement. You argue that Thorne didn't steal the moon, he liberated its potential through the investment of $400 billion in private infrastructure. The moral tension is a physical weight in your chest. You are aware that if you win, you create a precedent where the wealthy can carve up the sky like a Thanksgiving turkey. If you lose, Thorne's orbital refineries, already in mid-construction, become derelict hazards and the global energy crisis continues its death spiral. You choose the path of the pragmatist, convincing yourself that private efficiency is better than a stagnant bureaucratic stalemate between warring nations. As the preliminary hearings begin at The Hague, the stakes escalate from legal theory to global security. The prosecution, representing the United Nations, argues that the moon belongs to all of humanity. You counter with a cold, quantitative reality. The UN has no budget for lunar extraction, no launch capability for the next decade, and no legal framework for the distribution of lunar isotopes. You present a spreadsheet detailing the projected energy costs for the developing world. You show that under Thorne's stolen rights, the price of electricity would drop by 80% within 5 years, whereas under collective ownership, it would remain trapped in a committee for 50. You are weaponizing the world's desperation against its idealism. It is a brutal, effective strategy that gains you your first victory. The court denies the immediate seizure of Thorne's assets. However, the consequence of this victory is immediate. Protests erupt in every major capital. You receive death threats from environmentalists and nationalist militias alike. You are moved into a secure compound, your every movement tracked by Thorne's private security. You have traded your anonymity for a role as the architect of a new lunar feudalism. Years of litigation follow, and you grow alongside the risk. You are no longer the man in the dusty archive. You are a master of high-stakes manipulation. By year 3, the case moves to the Lunar Admiralty phase, a legal arena you helped create. The stakes are no longer just about mineral rights, they are about the sovereignty of the workers currently living in the Aitken Basin. If the rights are Thorne's, his subjects are his subjects. If the rights are the UN's, the workers are trespassers. you find yourself in a moral labyrinth. During a confidential deposition, you discover that Thorne has been suppressing data regarding the environmental degradation of the lunar crust caused by his rapid-fire mining techniques. You realize that your client isn't just a visionary, he is an ecological gambler. You have to decide whether to disclose this information, which would tank your case and send Thorne to prison, or to bury it in a proprietary trade secret filing to ensure the legal victory you've sacrificed your reputation for. You choose the latter, layering the non-disclosure agreements so deeply that not even a congressional subpoena could unearth them. You justify it by telling yourself that the helium-3 is more important than a few seismic cracks in a lifeless rock. The complexity of your responsibility reaches its zenith when a rival corporation backed by a rogue state attempts a hostile physical takeover of the mining site. The legal battle becomes a literal one. You are forced to draft a self-defense and security protocol for the moon that effectively grants Thorne the right to maintain a private military in orbit. You are no longer just an attorney, you are writing the constitution for a corporate state. You find yourself in 3 a.m. strategy sessions with retired generals discussing the legalities of kinetic bombardment as a form of property protection. Every decision you make compounds the danger. By securing Thorne's rights, you have inadvertently started a private space race where the laws of Earth no longer apply. You look in the mirror and see a man who has successfully privatized the night sky, but you also see a man who hasn't seen the sun without a security escort in 4 years. The final verdict is handed down on the 7th anniversary of the day the glass shattered, or rather the day the elevator chimed. The court rules in Thorne's favor, but with a caveat. The rights are granted as a 99-year lease subject to global oversight. It is a hollow victory for the prosecution and a massive, terrifying win for your client. You have legally validated the theft of a celestial body. The long-term consequences are already manifesting. 3 other billionaires have filed claims for Mars and the asteroid belt, citing your Thorne versus the world precedent. You have become the most successful attorney in history and the most dangerous. You have accumulated a fortune in lunar credits, but you live in a gilded cage of your own design. The tension does not dissipate with the verdict, it only changes shape. You stand on the balcony of your high-altitude apartment looking up at the moon. It looks different now. It isn't a symbol of mystery or romance, it is a ledger. You can see the faint artificial lights of the Aitken Basin refineries from here, a constant reminder of the paperwork you signed and the truths you buried. The phone in your pocket vibrates. It is Thorne. He isn't calling to celebrate. He's calling because a lunar colony has declared independence, citing the very sovereignty of improvement doctrine you authored to win his case. They are using your own words to strip him of his holdings, and they want to know if you are available for a new retainer. The cycle of litigation, theft, and power begins again. You realize that you will never return to the archives. You are the custodian of a lawless frontier, and the stakes will only stop rising when the oxygen runs out.